Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We all want that peace, like inner peace, especially when life gets a little bit crazy, right? And so today we're diving into these 10 Buddhist principles to build resilience.
No.
10 Buddhist principles now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So hold on. Before you think this is all chanting and robes, we're going to break down these principles and we're going to make them relatable to your life.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you ready to figure out how to handle insults like a pro and even turn criticism into like a superpower?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's go.
I love how these principles can apply to anyone, really. If you're seeking a calmer, more resilient way of being, these tools can really help you get there.
Absolutely. The first principle we're going to unpack is firm purposes. And the source compares it to having a compass in a storm. It's that guiding force that keeps you on track when everything's going haywire.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking, how many of us actually know our true north? You know what I mean?
Well, it's not something you can just Google, right? It's a journey. It's a process of self-discovery. I think a lot of times we mistake kind of fleeting desires or societal expectations for our purpose. But to really uncover your true purpose, you've got to go a little deeper.
Okay, so how do we even begin to do that? Is it like a huge epiphany moment? Or
it doesn't have to be a huge epiphany. I think it's more about paying attention to what consistently brings you joy, what gives your life meaning. What are those activities that you get so engrossed in you totally lose track of time? What problems do you feel naturally drawn to solving?
I love that. It's like tuning into those inner signals.
Yes.
Those almost magnetic pulls towards certain things.
Exactly. And remember, your purpose, it's not static. It can change. It can evolve as you grow and learn. What sets your soul on fire today, it might be different 5 years from now, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, that's really reassuring to hear. So the second principle is becoming untouchable, which sounds a little intimidating. Does this mean we need to build these emotional walls and just shut everyone out?
Yeah. Oh gosh, no, not at all. Not at all.
Okay, cool.
It's more about mastering your reactions to things. So imagine someone throws an insult your way, right? You have a choice. You can react impulsively and let their words control your emotions, or you can pause and observe those feelings and then choose a response that is more in line with who you want to be.
It's like being the captain of your emotional ship instead of letting the waves toss you around, right?
Exactly. And this reminds me of a powerful quote from the Buddha himself. He said, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger."
Wow.
And this really highlights how much of our suffering actually comes from our reactions to things, not the events themselves.
Okay, that's a serious mind shift. So if we can cultivate this detachment, we're choosing inner peace over reactivity.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you have the power. You have the power to decide how you want to feel, regardless of what's happening around you.
That is so empowering. It reminds me of that saying, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Okay, so moving on to the third principle, we're tackling insults and offense. And this one seems particularly challenging, in today's world where negativity can just come at us from every direction.
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
But here again, it's about shifting your perspective. So instead of taking insults personally, try to see them as reflections of the insulter's struggles, not your worth.
So it's like we're trying to see the pain or insecurity behind their words rather than letting those words define us.
Exactly. And as the Buddha wisely said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. It's a great reminder that responding to negativity with negativity just adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it does. That is such a powerful quote. It makes me think about how often we just meet anger with anger.
Yeah.
Or judgment with judgment. But what if we tried responding to those negative vibes with understanding and maybe even kindness?
Yeah. And it doesn't mean condoning harmful behavior, but it does mean choosing a different response. One that doesn't perpetuate that cycle of suffering.
So instead of letting someone else control our emotional state with their negativity, we're choosing a different path.
Exactly.
That's huge. All right, on to principle number 4, which is something we all deal with, responding to criticism.
Yeah.
Right.
We all know how much criticism can sting. But what if, instead of just seeing it as this negative thing, we saw it as a potential opportunity for growth?
That's a big ask.
Oh.
How do we separate constructive criticism from just negativity?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when our ego gets involved. It's hard.
Well, one thing to look at is the intention behind the criticism.
Okay.
Is it coming from a place of genuine care and a desire to help you improve, or does it just feel like someone's trying to tear you down?
Okay.
So
if it's the former, we can actually use it to learn and grow. But if it's the latter, We can just let it go without internalizing it.
Exactly. Focus on your actions and your integrity, and just let unfounded criticism roll off your back like water off a duck's back.
I love that. It's a reminder that we don't have to absorb every negative comment that comes our way.
Right.
We get to choose.
Yes.
Okay, principle number 5 is guarding your mind. And the Source uses this beautiful metaphor of the mind being like a garden. And it got me thinking, what kind of mental garden am I cultivating? Am I growing weeds or flowers?
That's a powerful question to ask yourself. The idea is that our thoughts are like seeds, and we get to choose which ones we want to plant and nurture. And mindfulness plays a huge role here. It's about being aware of the thoughts that are entering your mind, not judging them, just becoming aware of them, and then gently shifting your focus to more positive ones, the ones that are going to serve you better.
So it's not about pretending that negative thoughts don't exist. It's about consciously choosing to water the seeds of positivity and letting those flourish.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment in your mind that's going to support you, not drag you down.
It makes perfect sense. And I'm starting to see how these principles build on each other.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, they do.
they're creating a foundation for that inner peace and resilience. All right, let's dive into principle number 6, which tackles some tough emotions, overcoming fear and shame.
Yes.
Right. These can be so powerful.
They can be so powerful.
And often holding us back from living, authentically and pursuing our dreams. The Source says that fear is often linked to uncertainty and shame is linked to judgment, both internally and externally.
Right.
So if we can get to the root of those fears and judgments, maybe we can start to loosen their grip on us.
Yes. Instead of running from these emotions, the Buddhist approach is to face them head on
Okay.
with courage and self-compassion. It's about acknowledging the feelings, understanding where they're coming from, and then challenging the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of.
It takes real bravery, though.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels easier to stay stuck in those patterns of fear and self-doubt than it does to actually confront them.
I agree. It's a challenge, but the rewards are immense. When you can start to overcome those limiting beliefs and step into your true power, it's like this whole new level of freedom and confidence opens up.
I love that. It reminds me of that saying, everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to principle number 7, which is one of the most intriguing. Transform everyone into a teacher.
Oh, I love this one.
Right. This principle is so cool because it invites us to see life as one giant classroom
Yes.
where every encounter, even the ones that are challenging, offer us these valuable lessons for growth.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing difficult people as obstacles, we can view them as teachers, helping us hone our patience or our boundaries or our ability to communicate effectively.
Yes. Imagine approaching every interaction, no matter how pleasant or unpleasant, with this question: what can I learn from this?
Oh my gosh, that's a complete reframe
Yes.
of how we typically view those situations. It's about choosing to see the opportunity for learning even when things are tough.
Yes. It's about taking back your power to choose how you respond to the world.
I love that. Okay, moving on to principle number 8, forge an unshakable ethical code.
Yes.
So, in a world where it feels like the lines are constantly being blurred, how do we define our own moral compass?
Yeah, it's really about aligning your actions with your deepest values.
Okay.
It's not about following a set of rigid rules, but it's about living in a way that feels authentic and true to yourself. And the 5 precepts in Buddhism, they offer a really great framework for this kind of ethical living. Things like non-harming, honesty, faithfulness, truthfulness, and mindfulness.
And those precepts seem like such a solid foundation for building a life of integrity and purpose.
They are.
But how do we apply those in such a complex world?
Well, let's take honesty, for example. It's
Okay.
not just about telling the truth. It's about being transparent in all of your interactions, both personally and professionally.
Okay.
It's about living in a way that your actions are matching your words.
So it's about walking the talk, not just talking about our values, but actually living them out in our daily lives.
Exactly.
Got it.
And when you do that, you create this inner peace and alignment that really flows into every area of your life.
I love that. All right, let's explore principle number 9, live according to nature. In this tech-driven world, it can be so easy to lose touch with the natural world. How do we even rediscover that connection?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Source uses this imagery of nature's cycles, like the changing seasons, the ebb and flow of the tides, to illustrate the ideas of balance and impermanence. And I think it makes me think about how much we as humans resist change
Right. Yeah.
when it's such a natural part of life,
Yeah.
that rhythm of life.
We should embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And spending time in nature, really observing those patterns and those rhythms, it offers such a profound lesson in acceptance and adaptability.
I love that.
If you think about like a tree bending in the wind, it bends, but it doesn't break, That's resilience. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a beautiful metaphor. So even something as simple as taking a walk in the park, noticing the trees, the birds, the feel of the sun on our skin can be a way of reconnecting with nature and finding that sense of balance.
Absolutely. It's about slowing down, engaging your senses, and just being present in the moment. And, in those moments of stillness, that's where the clarity comes. That's where the deeper connection to ourselves and the world around us emerges.
Okay, on to the final principle in this deep dive. Weaponize gratitude. Sounds a bit aggressive, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Is gratitude really a weapon?
Well, I think, the word is a little bit surprising, but what it really highlights is the power that gratitude has to shift our perspective and actually rewire our brains for positivity.
Okay.
It's not just about being polite. It's about actively cultivating a mindset of appreciation and abundance.
So instead of focusing on what we lack, we're choosing to appreciate what we have, even the small things.
Exactly. As the Buddha put it, let us rise up and be thankful. It's a call to action. Let's make gratitude an integral part of our daily lives. Even something as simple as keeping a gratitude journal, where you write down a few things you're thankful for every day, can make a world of difference.
It's like we're training our minds to look for the good, even in the midst of challenges.
Yes.
Which is super empowering. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, exploring these 10 principles for cultivating unshakable peace.
It's been fascinating, hasn't it?
It has.
And we're only halfway through.
I know, I can't wait to keep going.
Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to go even deeper into how to actually apply these principles in your daily life.
Welcome back. So we just explored these 10 Buddhist principles for cultivating this unshakable peace. Now we're going to shift gears, get a little bit more practical. It's one thing to understand these principles, but how do we actually weave them into our daily lives?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, knowledge without action, it's like a seed that never gets planted. Yeah. So let's get practical. Let's figure out how to actually use these things.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with that first principle, firm purposes. We talked about it being like our compass in life's storms. But how do we actually find that compass? Is it something we're born knowing, or do we have to go on some epic quest to find it?
I wish it was just handed to us, at birth.
Right.
Here's your purpose, go do your thing. But the truth is it often takes a bit of looking back, reflecting. Sometimes it's about connecting the dots backwards. Think about those pivotal moments in your life. The times you felt really alive, really fulfilled, maybe even a little bit obsessed with what you were doing. What was it about those experiences?
I like that. It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
Yes.
And those moments are clues.
Exactly. What were the common threads? What values were being expressed in those moments? Maybe it was creativity, a desire to help others, maybe a deep connection to nature.
Those are great starting points. But what about those times when we feel lost or unsure? How do we navigate through those moments of uncertainty when our compass seems to be spinning?
Yeah.
Those
are all part of the journey, too. Think about it like hiking a new trail. There might be forks in the road. There might be unexpected detours. You might even stumble a few times along the way. But every step you take, even the missteps, they're all bringing you closer to where you need to be.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about trusting the process, even when we feel a little bit lost. Now let's dive into becoming untouchable. It's all about mastering our reactions, not letting external events control our emotions. But how do we actually do that when someone's pushing our buttons or life throws us a curveball?
It's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the stronger you become. And mindfulness is a really powerful tool for this. When you feel that surge of anger or frustration or even excitement, sometimes just hit the pause button,
That's easier said than done.
I know, right? Especially in the heat of the moment. But a really helpful technique is to just notice what's happening in your body. Where do you feel that emotion? Is your heart racing? Are your shoulders tense? Just observe those physical sensations without judging them. Just notice them. And that can create a little bit of space between the stimulus and your reaction.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's like we're intercepting that automatic response and choosing a more conscious way of engaging.
Exactly. And in that space, you have the power to choose. You have the power to choose a response that's in line with your values and your intentions. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about responding skillfully.
Okay, let's tackle insults and offense. The Source encourages us to see these insults as reflections of the insulter's struggles, not our worth. But honestly, that can be so hard when someone's being truly hurtful. How do we put this principle into practice without feeling like we're just being doormats?
Yeah, it's important to remember that it's not about condoning bad behavior. You always have the right to set boundaries and protect yourself. But the key is to shift your perspective. Instead of thinking, this person is attacking me, try thinking, this person is acting out of their own pain or insecurity.
Okay, so we're separating the behavior from the person,
Yes,
recognizing that their actions are often a symptom of something deeper.
exactly. And when you can see that it's easier to cultivate compassion, both for yourself and the person who's lashing out, this doesn't mean you have to become best friends with them, but it can really help you detach from that emotional charge of their words.
Yeah, it's like we're choosing to see their humanity even when their behavior is difficult. So now let's talk about responding to criticism. The Source suggests we can view criticism as potential for growth, not just negativity. But how do we differentiate between the helpful feedback and just plain meanness?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes it feels like criticism, even when it's well-intentioned, hits us right in those insecurities.
It does.
Here's a tip. Pay attention to your body's response.
Okay.
When you hear the criticism, does it make you want to curl up in a ball and hide? Or does it spark some curiosity, maybe even a little bit of excitement?
Okay, so if it's the former, it's probably coming from a place of judgment, and we can just choose to let it go. But if it's the latter, maybe there's something we can learn from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if the delivery is a little rough around the edges, constructive criticism can be such a powerful tool for growth. It can help us see our blind spots, challenge our assumptions, and ultimately help us become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, it's like getting a free coaching session, even if the coach isn't always the most tactful. All right, now on to guarding your mind, which uses this beautiful metaphor of the mind being like a garden. How do we actually cultivate a mental garden that's flourishing with positivity and resilience?
It starts with awareness. Becoming aware of the thoughts that are taking root in your mental landscape. And just like a gardener pulls weeds, you can gently start to redirect your attention away from those negative thoughts.
But what if those negative thoughts keep popping up like those stubborn weeds?
Well, the truth is you can't eliminate negative thoughts altogether. It's part of being human. The key is to not let them take over the entire garden.
Yeah.
When you notice a negative thought, acknowledge it. And then gently shift your focus to something that's a little bit more positive and constructive.
So it's not about denying their existence. It's about consciously choosing to nurture the positive ones.
Exactly. It's like training a puppy. At first it might be all over the place, chewing on your slippers and barking at squirrels. But with some consistent training, you can teach it to behave in a way that brings you joy rather than stress.
Okay, I like that. That's a great analogy. Now let's talk about overcoming fear and shame. These are two emotions that can be so debilitating. The Source encourages us to face them head-on with courage and self-compassion. But how do we summon that courage when those emotions feel so overwhelming?
It starts with understanding that fear and shame are often rooted in stories that we're telling ourselves. And those stories might be based on past experiences, limiting beliefs, societal expectations.
So if we can identify the story, maybe we can start to rewrite it.
Yes. Ask yourself, is this story serving me? Is it even true? Or is it just a thought pattern that's keeping me stuck? And once you identify the story, you can start to challenge it. You can replace it with something that's more empowering.
It's like we're becoming the authors of our own lives, rather than letting those old limiting stories dictate our choices and actions.
Exactly. And remember, self-compassion is so crucial here. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a close friend.
That makes sense. It's about being gentle with ourselves. Now let's move on to transform everyone into a teacher. This principle encourages us to see every encounter, even those difficult ones, as an opportunity for learning and growth. But how do we actually put this into practice, especially when we're dealing with those difficult people?
It's about perspective. It's a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing those difficult people as the enemy, what if we saw them as mirrors, reflecting back to us parts of ourselves that we might need to work on? Maybe they're triggering a pattern of reactivity in us or highlighting a boundary that we need to set.
So it's about looking for the lesson, even in those interactions that push our buttons or make us want to run for the hills.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean condoning bad behavior. It's about choosing to see the opportunity for growth within yourself, even amidst those difficult circumstances.
So we're reclaiming our power to choose how we want to respond to the world, rather than letting those external events dictate our emotional state.
Yes. And that brings us to forge an unshakable ethical code. So how do we define our moral compass in a world where it feels like everyone has their own set of rules? You know?
Right. It can feel really overwhelming, especially when we're bombarded with so many different opinions and perspectives. How do we stay grounded in our own values?
It starts with getting really clear on what matters most to you. What are those guiding principles that you want to shape your decisions? What kind of person do you want to be in the world? You know?
So it's about defining our non-negotiables.
Yes.
Those core values that we're not willing to compromise.
Exactly. And then it's about making choices that align with those values. Even when it's hard, even when it means going against the grain.
It's about walking the talk, not just talking about our values, but actually living them out in our daily lives.
Exactly. And when you can do that, you create this sense of inner peace and integrity that can't be shaken by outside pressures.
Okay, I'm really starting to see how all these principles are weaving together to create this framework for living a more resilient and fulfilling life. Now let's explore live according to nature. In our busy tech-driven world, how do we even begin to reconnect with nature's wisdom?
You know, it doesn't have to be this big week-long retreat into the wilderness. Even small, intentional moments of connection can make a huge difference. You know, maybe it's taking your morning coffee outside and just listening to the birds sing, or taking a mindful walk in the park after work and noticing the changing colors of the leaves.
So it's about creating those pockets of stillness, those opportunities to tune in to nature's rhythms and just find a sense of balance amidst the chaos.
Exactly. And you know what? In those moments, you might be surprised by the insights and clarity that emerge.
Nature has a way of bringing us back to the present moment, doesn't it? It's a good reminder that there's this bigger picture, this natural order of things that we're all a part of. Okay, let's wrap up with weaponized gratitude. We talked about gratitude being this powerful tool for shifting our perspective. But how do we cultivate gratitude when life feels challenging? When we're facing setbacks or disappointments, you know?
Yeah. You know, the key is to remember that gratitude, it's not about denying or ignoring those difficult things. It's about choosing to focus on what's good, even amidst those challenges.
So it's like those I Spy books we had as kids.
Yeah.
But instead of searching for hidden objects, we're searching for those moments of beauty and connection and appreciation, even in the midst of chaos.
I love that. And, you know, the more you practice looking for those things, the more you will find them.
It's about training our minds to see the good, to acknowledge those blessings, even when things are tough.
Exactly. And the beauty of gratitude is it has a ripple effect. The more you cultivate gratitude, the more you actually attract positive experiences and relationships into your life.
That is so cool. I'm feeling so inspired to put all of this into practice. We've explored how to bring these 10 Buddhist principles to life in practical, relatable ways.
Yes, we've laid the groundwork. Now it's time to go and build something beautiful with these tools.
I love that. I can't wait to see what insights await us in the final part of our deep dive. Stay tuned for part 3, where we're going to explore the transformative power of these principles and how they can lead to lasting peace and fulfillment. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've unpacked these 10 Buddhist principles for unshakable peace, and we've even explored some practical ways to weave them into our lives. Now, I'm curious, what difference does all this actually make? If we truly embody these principles, how does it change our experience of the world, our relationships, even our own sense of self?
That's the real question, isn't it? It's not just about the knowledge, it's about transformation. So let's explore that. What happens when you actually start living these principles?
I love it. Let's start with firm purposes. We've talked about it being our compass guiding us through all of life's craziness. But what happens when we actually find and align with that purpose? What shifts?
Well, imagine waking up every day with this sense of clarity, the sense of direction, knowing that your actions are in line with what you value most. That's the power of living on purpose. Everything you do has more meaning.
It's not just about achieving goals, but it's about feeling fulfilled along the way.
Exactly. It's that deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you're living a life that's true to yourself. It's like all the pieces of the puzzle finally click into place.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Now, what about becoming untouchable? We talked about mastering our reactions, not letting outside events control our emotions. But what's the payoff? What does that kind of emotional resilience actually feel like?
Okay, so picture this. Someone cuts you off in traffic, or a coworker makes a snide remark instead of getting angry or frustrated. You just observe those feelings. You don't judge them. You choose a response that's aligned with your values, whether that's letting it go or addressing the situation in a calm and assertive way.
So it's like we're developing this inner shield. Like
Mhm.
it deflects negativity and keeps us grounded even when chaos is swirling all around.
Yes, it's about cultivating that inner peace that's not dependent on external things. You're creating a stable foundation that can withstand the storms.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about insults and offense.
Right.
What happens when we really embrace this idea that these are reflections of the insulter's struggles and not our worth? Does that actually change our relationships?
It really can. Instead of becoming defensive or getting caught in the blame game, you can approach those who've hurt you with compassion, with understanding.
So we're not condoning their behavior, but we're seeing them as human beings who are acting out of their own pain.
Exactly. Everyone is fighting their own battles, and sometimes those battles spill over into our interactions.
It's like we're choosing to see their humanity even when the behavior is really difficult. Okay, let's explore responding to criticism. What happens when we choose to view criticism as a potential for growth rather than a personal attack? Does it take the sting out of it, when we feel judged or misunderstood?
It really can. Imagine receiving feedback, and even if it's not delivered in the nicest way, instead of getting defensive or shutting down, you think, is there something I can learn from this?
So we're separating the message from the messenger
Right.
and looking for that little nugget of wisdom, even if it's coded in negativity.
Exactly. And when you do that, you're turning a potentially negative experience into an opportunity for growth. You get to choose how you want to learn from it.
Okay, on to guarding your mind.
Yeah.
We've talked about creating this mental garden that's full of positive and supportive thoughts. How does that impact our inner world?
Well, your thoughts, they create your reality.
Yeah.
When you make the conscious choice to focus on the positive light, you start to see the world in a more positive light. You attract more good things into your life.
So it's not about pretending that everything's perfect. It's about nurturing those thoughts and beliefs that make us feel strong and help us see the good in ourselves and other people.
Exactly. And when you do that, you're creating this reservoir of strength and resilience that you can draw on no matter what.
Now let's talk about overcoming fear and shame. What happens when we face those emotions head-on with courage and compassion? Does it lead to more freedom, more authenticity?
It really can. Imagine breaking free from those old beliefs that have been holding you back. The self-doubt, the fear that's kept you playing small. When you face those fears and you treat yourself with kindness, you step into your true power.
It's like we're finally shedding those heavy layers of self-judgment, and we can finally step into the light.
Exactly. You give yourself permission to go after your dreams, to take risks, to live a life that you love.
Okay, now let's chat about transform everyone into a teacher. What happens when we see every single encounter, even the ones that are challenging, as an opportunity for learning and growth?
Imagine approaching every interaction, whether it's good or bad, with curiosity and openness. The world becomes your classroom full of valuable lessons, and you become a wiser, more compassionate person.
It's like we're shifting from judgment and separation to connection and understanding,
Yes. We're all in this together. We all have something to teach each other. And even those interactions that push our buttons, those are opportunities for growth. Maybe it's a chance to be more patient, to set boundaries, or develop more empathy.
Okay, on to forge an unshakable ethical code. What difference does it make when we actually live in alignment with our values? Does it really lead to more inner peace, more fulfillment?
Imagine waking up every day knowing that your actions are in line with what you believe. That sense of integrity that flows into every area of your life, that's what it's all about.
So it's about walking the talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just about talking the talk, it's about living it.
Exactly. And when we do that, we attract people and experiences into our lives that match those values.
Right. You create a ripple effect of positivity and integrity that goes out into the world.
Oh, I love that. Okay, let's explore live according to nature. We talked about reconnecting with the natural world to find balance and wisdom, but what's the impact of that in the long run? How does that change our perspective on things?
Imagine feeling grounded, feeling connected to the earth, realizing you are a part of something so much bigger than yourself. You start to see how everything's connected, that delicate balance of nature, the beauty of things changing.
It reminds us that change is inevitable, that there's a time for everything, and surrendering to that natural flow brings peace.
And you know, as you spend more time in nature, you might notice your senses become more alive. Your mind gets calmer, your well-being improves. Nature has this amazing ability to bring us back to center.
Okay, finally, let's talk about weaponized gratitude. We've talked about how powerful gratitude can be in shifting our perspective and rewiring our brains for the positive, but what's the ultimate impact? What happens when we cultivate a truly grateful heart?
Imagine feeling so grateful for all the good things in your life, even when things are tough. Gratitude can amplify your joy, it deepens relationships, and it makes us so much stronger when we face difficult times.
It's like we're training our minds to see the good, to see the abundance that's all around us.
Yes, and the more you do it, the more you realize that happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you cultivate. It comes from within.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey. We've explored these 10 Buddhist principles as real pathways to a more peaceful, more fulfilling, and more meaningful life.
And it doesn't end here, it's an ongoing practice.
It is a commitment to cultivating inner peace.
One moment at a time.
Absolutely. So as you go back out into your world, remember that the path to that unshakable peace, it is within reach. Start small. Choose one principle that speaks to you and see what happens. Until next time, keep diving deep.